So my name is Morgan Pellerin, and I'm here from the Career Development Center tonight to talk about networking and using LinkedIn as part of our job search bootcamp initiative this summer. Um, I guess the first thing I'm going to kind of ask, I always kind of ask this at the start of these just to make sure my audio is good, is if you could just let me know, one, your year in school and kind of or if you graduated, that would be helpful as we get started this evening. So feel free to kind of chat those things in. Actually, it's actually probably small enough that I could unmute you all so you could share that too. um, so I guess feel free to, if you want to unmute yourself, I think I just gave you the permission to do that, or if not, feel free to chat it in too. Either way is fine. um, yeah, just like to get a sense of where you're at and also make sure you can hear me. So just double checking. All right, so Grace graduated this semester. Thank you. And congratulations. Yeah, for anyone who's a recent graduate, one, congratulations. Two, sorry it's not under better circumstances. But do know that we we acknowledge the huge accomplishment that you've made or completed this spring. So congratulations. Um, and then Becky, thanks for sharing. It looks like you're transferring in this year as well to Plattsburgh, so that's great. Um, so yeah, so I guess to kind of get things started, I'm gonna, just so you kind of know what to expect this evening. I'm going to share my screen in a second. I'm going to go over some kind of networking tips, talk about why it's important, also talk about how to use LinkedIn. And I'll be completely honest to kind of start things off. When I was in your shoes, as a, whether it was recent college graduate or certainly more so while I was in school, I don't think I fully understood the value of networking. And I think oftentimes we kind of have this like idea in our head of what networking is, but it looks a lot different. So I'm hopeful that I can break that down for you this evening. I really think of networking more as just like relationship building, which probably many of you through your time in college or outside of college too, you've developed relationships with, whether it was fellow students that became friends, coworkers that you work with, things like that. And a lot of it is taking those skills that you've already developed and kind of just using them in a little bit different way. So hopefully with that kind of frame, it seems a little less scary. And that's what I want you to leave with this evening. That's kind of my goal, is that you leave the session feeling like, oh, I can do this. It makes sense. And I understand why it's important. Those are kind of my main goals of the evening. This is part of our larger series, our job search boot camp. This is the third installment. Our first one was on resume writing. Our second one last week was on job search tools. This week is on networking and LinkedIn. Next week we will have one on interviewing skills, and then the final week for June anyway, the last Monday in June will be on um, salary, benefits, negotiating salary, and understanding all of that. And then we will also be continuing this again in July and August. So if you want to hear it again or you missed one of them, we'll be offering them again in July and August. So let you all know about that. I say that because this one's probably a little bit shorter than some of the other ones I've done. I think tonight will probably go 30 to 40 minutes or so. So with that, I'm going to share my screen again. And I also will, if you have any questions, I do have the chat open in front of me. So if you have any questions, either feel free to unmute yourself or feel free to ask a question in chat. Either way is fine. Grace, you had a good question as well. So I've been sending out emails pretty much every week with kind of like an update of our events. I hadn't added the July. I think your question was like added in the July dates yet, mostly just because I didn't want to overwhelm people with the amount of dates. But they will be starting on July 13th, which is also a Monday, and running from July 13th through I think it's like August 10th. And you can access those dates on our website and in Handshake if you wanted to see when they'll be. Um, all right, so with that, I'll go ahead and get started. Again, ask any questions you have. So I kind of went over this already, kind of the some of the outcomes I hope to cover with you tonight, but just a little bit more in detail. I'm going to kind of go over some basics of networking. So both kind of in person and digitally. And I'll also talk about informational interviewing as well and what that kind of looks like. Right now, just given our situation, I'll probably focus a bit more on the digital aspect, but which is one of the reasons why I want to cover LinkedIn. But I also will talk about in person as well. I also want to talk just generally about conducting an informational interview and why you should do it. I'll talk about developing a LinkedIn profile, using LinkedIn for networking, using another tool that we have called Career Shift for networking, also how to leverage like other kind of social media platforms. A great one that I like is called Meetup for networking. And this was actually for a class that I borrowed some of this from a class. We're not going to talk about graduate programs. If you have an interest in graduate programs, we could certainly set up a separate appointment to do that, but that really wasn't the focus of this evening. So sorry about that last bullet. So here's some things you want to consider when you are networking. So I guess for you all, I'll kind of put this question out to you. Feel free to kind of chat in. When you hear networking, what do you think? Like, and you can tell me you hate it. Don't worry. Tell me when you think of networking, what do you think about? Like, some folks before have told me they don't like it. You're not going to offend me, but what do you think when you hear networking? I'm going to pull up the next thing here. I'll type that in. Well, I'm assuming maybe you don't have you're really thinking or having a hard time kind of thinking about that. Oh wait, so let's see. Yeah, so I think that Grace, you bring up a good point. It's hard sometimes not to feel too selfish. So yeah, that's like an element of it. How to really just not come off saying like, I want a job. Help me find a job. Yeah, that's hard. And that's where I kind of fall back to that relationship building aspect of it. I don't think you want to have your first outreach to someone. I would not recommend kind of almost like cold outreach to someone you don't know. You're reaching out and you're saying like, hey, will you help me find a job? Because they're probably going to be like, yeah, I don't know you. I don't know you enough to want to help you. So as we get talking about informational interviewing, I'm going to talk about how to try to breach that a little bit without feeling too like it's too selfish. So hopefully we can help that. That's a good thing to bring up. So thanks. So I have a video I want to share, but that kind of helps kind of frame this whole idea of networking. Let's see. Is this the one? I have another screen I'm looking at. I just want to make sure I'm pulling up the right one. I'm just going to play the beginning really quick. If it will load. And you hear my kids, they just arrived at home. They're fine. But just wanted to acknowledge you might hear them in the rest of the session this evening because I have two small kids. So sorry about that. I'm going to play this quick little video. It kind of highlights some things for networking. It's about 4 minutes and we'll kind of debrief after.
Networking can be a daunting task. Putting yourself out there, meeting new people, it can be scary. But when it comes to your career, it's essential to your success. Let's first start with the purpose of networking. Even though the end goal is for us to improve our own opportunities, you can't approach it like that. The most successful networkers meet someone and say, what can I do for that person? Not, what can that person do for me?
I think it affords you a great opportunity to learn about other people, other businesses, other industries, and networking doesn't have to be strictly about job searching. It could be really about just building relationships. I think people unfortunately think of networking as I need to meet new people and they're going to find me a new job. There's so much more to it than just finding that new job.
The worst thing you can do is go into a networking event.
So they're kind of talking about networking events in this video, which are great. I know maybe some are starting to happen, but probably not so much. So I think kind of just thinking a lot of the tips I really like in this video, but think about it even as from the broader context of just connecting with people, even if it was through LinkedIn or digital means. I know right now there might not be a lot of networking events going on.
Completely blind. If there's an attendee list, you want to do a little research. See who's going to be there, what is their business, who might you want to talk to.
If you know you're going to a networking event and you have an idea of who's going to be there, see if you can do some homework on them. You may want to Google them. Do some homework. See if there's any information that's provided by the event organizer so that you're not walking in cold.
Also, you want to stay up to date on current events. You want to make sure you have some talking points ready when the conversation starts. During the event, you want to have some preset goals. Whether you meet 3 people or 20 people, having goals will keep you focused.
My goal for people in the room is not to leave with a stack of business cards, but to have 5 or maybe 6 conversations that are deep and meaningful, and to do something powerful with them after the fact. So the quick, meet and greet is just the start.
I think that if you're going to the networking session, you should already have a goal in mind. My goal is I want to find out about opportunities that I could get in my major, or I'm just exploring careers. I want to talk to people about what they do, what they like about work, because I'm just in an early exploration stage.
Don't monopolize the conversation and don't come on too strong. Even though it's tempting to brag about yourself and all that you've accomplished, remember that the most successful networkers focus on what they can do for the people they meet, not what those people can do for them.
When you network with people, making sure that you're looking out for them, however that might be, as much as you may want them to look out for you. So when you exchange business cards, maybe exchange, hey, could I have 2 of yours in case I want to give yours out to somebody else, things like that. So making sure that you sort of give as much as you get.
Here's a tip. You want to make sure you always keep one hand free, because you never know when you're going to have to greet someone with a handshake.
Maybe not.
Oopsies. The most effective networkers know that the real work begins when they get home. After the event, jot down some notes about who you talked to and what was discussed. The back of the business card is a great place to do that. Promptly reach out within a few days saying it was nice to meet them and that you'd like to discuss ways that you might work together moving forward.
The personal touch, the human touch, emotional intelligence is, I would say, more important than it ever has been, and that's why networking is so important. You really have to figure out how to meet folks, not just through LinkedIn. That's important too, but you have to get out there and get into the fray and get in front of people. FaceTime, up close and personal, that's very important.
Keep an open mind and don't write anyone off as irrelevant. One of the most exciting things about networking is you never know who you might meet and what wonderful connections might be made.
All right, so I know that video, some of that was a little irrelevant for what we're talking about in this moment, but I do think it's helpful to kind of frame the conversation of networking. and just kind of, I mean, some of the big takeaways for me, and feel free to chat in any takeaways that you have. Really, that it can happen in unexpected places. I know in this day we're kind of talking about networking events, but it can definitely happen in unexpected places. I'll use myself as an example. I was at a conference for the type of work that I do, and I was at a grocery store kind of nearby the conference. Long story short, I ended up talking with someone who was also attending the conference. We talked for a while we were like waiting in line to check cash out. He ended up like telling me about job opportunities at his university. I'm still in contact with this person today. So you just kind of never know like where you might engage with people. I think they kind of talk about this in the video too, but trying to conceptualize it as building a relationship and not making it all about you. And that can be hard, especially when you're feeling the pressure of like, I want to find a job. But I think, again, you kind of want to, if you build that foundation, then the ask of like asking for help finding a job becomes a little easier when you already kind of have established a relationship with someone. And I think the big thing is the kind of that last bullet is you putting yourself in situations where you can network. Now, some of it right now is a little hard because, some networking isn't happening. Like it's actually, I don't know about you watching that, but for me, like watching it, you're seeing like my radar is going off of like, oh, you're not social distancing. Oh, like, like all the things we can't really do right now. But there are still some ways you can network and put yourself in maybe digital situations where you can network. But if you don't kind of take that initiative to put yourself in those situations, then the networking just isn't going to happen. So I think that's like the big thing to kind of keep in mind is in order for it to happen, you need to engage. Which you're all doing today. You took a good first step kind of learning how to do this today. So let's see. I kind of go over quickly the types of networking. So one would be like kind of in-person networking, which maybe isn't happening again as much right now. Those might be at conferences, conferences that would maybe be related to the profession you want to get into. If you're not aware of professional organizations within your field yet, I would start searching for them now because they could be great resources to help with networking. And you can also set up an appointment with us individually, and we can help you find professional organizations in your kind of field of interest as well. Another great resource would be young professional groups. So depending on where you are geographically, if you search like young professional organizations near whatever city or region you're in, it's likely you would find a young professional group. I'll give you an example. Like Plattsburgh is not, you've all been to Plattsburgh. It's not a huge city by any means, but we have a young professionals group in town. So, there's likely going to be one nearby where you are. So that's something I out of anything, once kind of in-person networking happens again, that would be probably one of my first things to check out would be a young professional group. They tend to be very open, very welcoming, and it's a great opportunity to kind of start meeting people in your area. Chambers of Commerce can be another group. Chambers of Commerce are in every region as well. If you search for Chambers of Commerce in your region, you're likely going to find one. And while they might not be holding events immediately, some of them actually are holding like digital events as well. So that's something else. And then there's some other things that you can kind of think about that maybe are a little less obvious, but even just networking at work, people who you work with, even if it's like part-time job or something like that, at an internship that you've had, maybe you're having now or you've had in the past. Those might be good connections to reach back out to. Friends, or even parents of friends as well. Like if a friend of yours parent does something that you're interested in, if the field works in the field you want to be in, that might be someone that's great for an informational interview. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Family as well. We got an aunt that works in doing something you like, or a cousin. Feel free to reach out to them. And then in a moment, I'm going to talk about some online opportunities as well. I'm going to focus mostly on LinkedIn. There are a lot of Facebook groups now, though, too, as well. So it's something else to check out. And really, each format has its benefits and limitations. Obviously, I would say like the in-person is best when it's able to happen, mostly because it's easier to build a connection. But the online options they're relatively easy, and maybe you can connect with people who are not in your area. So there's some advantages there too. Um, so I've been talking about this thing kind of called like an informational interview. And I recognize that some of you might not know what that is. So I want to acknowledge that, and I want to explain why they are so helpful. So really, when you think about an informational interview, I kind of call that like maybe the first step of networking. What an informational interview is basically just reaching out to people and trying to make it an easy thing to say yes to, but really asking them, I'm interested in the type of work that you do. Would you be willing to talk with me about your career path? Like letting them know that you're either in college or a recent graduate and you're looking to try to learn more about this career field. Would they be willing to talk with you to learn about your career path? That I recommend that outreach as opposed to, hey, you don't know me, but will you help me find a job? Because that's much more likely to hear a no for. You still might hear no's for, I'm interested in the work that you do. Would you be willing to talk with me about your career path? But it's less likely to hear no for that than asking for help with a job. So that's kind of the rough idea of the outreach you'll want to do. I'm going to talk with you about how you can actually go about doing this. And right now I'm going to focus on the digital way to do this. I think, you want to manage your expectations just overall with networking. It's, I guess, I'm trying to think of like the best way to spin this, but you're going to hear a lot of no's, or, you might, you're probably not, if you reach out to 10 people and 2 got back to you, that would be really good. And I say that so you stay hungry, you stay motivated. It's going to be similar when you start your job searching as well. You might hear no's before you hear yes. Don't let those get you down. You want to be able to work through that and get to that next step. I'll show you some suggested questions. And if you're interested, this is something we can share with you as well. But let's see. I just want to get rid of that. Okay. Most of these are would make sense, but like how long have they been in their position? What do they find most satisfying? What personal qualities or abilities are important? What entry-level jobs are best for learning as much as possible? How would you advise I go about looking for an entry-level job? What would you, I like this one the best. This has been really helpful. Is there anyone else you recommend I speak with? So you could turn one person who said yes to you into 1 or 2 more people to say yes to you. So that's another helpful tip as well. You don't have to ask these in the way that they're written, but and what I can do is I'll try to send these in a follow-up email to you all this evening. You don't have to ask these the way that they're written, but it kind of gives you an idea of types of questions you might want to ask. So it's just something to think about. I guess as I'm going over that, any questions about informational interviews at all? They make sense for people? Where they are helpful, and I probably should have started with this context, is let's say you've narrowed in on a career path. Maybe you're looking between 1 or 2 things, and you're trying to get a more clear picture of what the field actually looks like. An informational interview can be a great way to kind of get rid of some of that fog, help you better understand the field, but also build connections. So it kind of does 2 things. On the one hand, it helps you get more clear on what is expected in that field, like what is going to help you be successful in that field. But on the other, you're getting to make connections with people who work in that field. So let's say you're interested in working for a company and you do an informational interview with someone who works at that company. That'd be a great way to go about doing this. And there's ways of tailoring your search for people to connect with that can help you do that. And that's kind of the next phase I'm going to get into, is showing you how to find people. Usually this is the point when I'm working one-on-one with people, where people kind of look at me and they're like, this all sounds great, but how am I going to find people to talk with? So that's kind of like the next part here. One, there's actually, that video I showed you earlier was on a platform called Candid Career that the Career Development Center actually has right on our website. So if you go to our website, the Career Development Center website, and go under Career Tools, one of the tools is Candid Career, and it'll bring you to this page. Oh, well, not this page. You don't have to log in if you go in from our website, which is maybe what I should have done to begin with. So Platts Life, this is good anyway, you'll see where it is. Career Development Center. Under that, go to Job Postings and Career Tools. And then in here, where is it? Candid Career Videos. So this is not necessarily a way to find people, but this is kind of like a way to get your feet, put your foot in the water into informational interviews. These are pre-recorded informational interviews. So you have an interest in a career field and you want to hear what people's experience has been. You can go to Explore Careers. You can explore by major, career title, industry. You can kind of pick how you want to narrow it down. Let's say you're interested in education.
My name is Candace Bunyan.
And then you could kind of scroll through and see like, okay, well, here's someone who's a principal, here's someone who's a kindergarten teacher. They kind of list out all these different types of job titles, and you can listen to each person usually has about 4 or 5 videos. I'll click on one as an example. So, come on, scroll down. You kind of see like each video is about 2 minutes long, and they kind of have, one talks about the person's job, one talks about what they like, maybe what's challenging, how to prepare for a career in the field. So they kind of, you might have between 5 and 10 minutes worth of video to watch per person. So I think that's kind of interesting and helpful to take a look at. So I wanted to point out Candid Career as one way to kind of get your feet into this. But I don't, on the other hand, I don't think it replaces the relationship building you'll get out of, actually finding people to talk with. So while I think Candid Career is great to get started, it's hard to build a relationship with a pre-recorded video. So that kind of takes us to the next thing, talking about LinkedIn. For those who are on the call, I guess kind of chat in, like, do you have a LinkedIn account? Maybe just so you can do simple like no, yes. But whether or not you have a LinkedIn account. All right, thank you, Cyriba. Looks like you have one. So Pamela, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, I guess what I can kind of do, I'm going to show you kind of quickly some basics of LinkedIn. And then I'm going to show you kind of how you can search for people. So I'm going to actually exit this at the moment. So it sounds like you're all familiar with it though, which is good. So I'm going to show you just my profile really quick. Not saying mine is perfect, but I could kind of outline some things for you. So one thing here, definitely want to have some kind of professional looking photo. I would say, if you're home now, like even just using like a wall background or something like that, and a professional, at least shirt is fine. So that would be something I would, normally we actually take these photos for you. This one was actually taken in our office. But right now that's not really an option. This part you'll see different things here. Like if you have a position in your field, then you can kind of put that. But I know for a lot of students, you don't necessarily yet. So what you could do is say something along the lines of like aspiring professional in blank field. Like, you could kind of get creative that way. And I see a lot of students do that. So I think that tells more than just saying student, because then it gives someone the context of the field that you want to go into. So this is kind of more the wizard that you'll see like on yours. Like, it's asking me if I want to update things. I don't right now. I have a little about. You don't necessarily have to do this yet. I kind of do it to kind of give someone a quick synopsis of like what my experience has been in. So some people find that helpful. Like if you've done research maybe, or had a couple internships within a different field, you might bullet point it. But again, you want this about to be very short. I tried to have one sentence and just a couple bullets. So relatively short there. And then you have experience. At this point, I would put in kind of really any part-time jobs, I guess, that are relatively recent. Certainly if you have a full-time job, any internships that you've had, anything that you feel like that is experience that you have that would be relevant to the field you want to go into. What I usually recommend is you want to have some like bullet points underneath to give someone some context as into what you've done. Because I'll use myself as an example. If I just put assistant director, but didn't really give someone a context here, if an employer was looking to maybe recruit me and they don't see all the things I've done, they might kind of miss some things that are important. Again, you don't have to write a book, but I think having 3 to 4 bullets per thing is probably a good idea. You can also put in like any mediums, like media that you have associated with things. So like an example, maybe a video was made, or you developed some like digital content. You can actually add that. Like I did that here. I kind of added a video, and it asks you as you're building these in if you want to do that. So you're getting to see all of the things I've done. I have education as well. So if you type in Plattsburgh, like I didn't put that logo in there. It kind of does that automatically. And then I have some volunteer experience as well. You can put in skills and endorsements. Go ahead and do that if you want to. I wouldn't spend a ton of time doing that right now, but if you want to, go ahead. One thing I would say is if you have anyone who's willing to give you a recommendation, like go ahead and do that. I've gotten one and I've given a couple. Again, they're not super long, but it's great for people to see that people are willing to kind of put themselves out there for you. So that's just something to kind of take a look at. And then I also follow organizations as well. So you can kind of see, you could follow organizations you're interested in, and they'll show up like if I click home, they'll show up like in your news feed. So that's something else you can kind of see as well. So that's kind of a quick overview of LinkedIn as far as just developing the profile. But now I want to show you how you can use it from a networking perspective. So I'd say there's kind of 2 main ways I recommend using LinkedIn to try to find people if you're trying to find people to do an informational interview with or network with. On the one hand, when you first create your account, I should actually go back. I haven't been as active in here as I need to be. If you go to like my network, it's going to see, you can actually do a contact import. So it would basically say whatever email address you have, it would recommend people based on who you've emailed through that email address with. It'll look to see that they have a LinkedIn account and ask you if you want to connect with them. I'd recommend doing that, mostly because it's a great way to initially grow your connections, which will allow you to see more people, which is important. But going back to finding people, one great way is Plattsburgh alumni, because you have a built-in connection with them. It's likely they may say yes to your outreach. So to do that, I'm just going to search Plattsburgh, and then I'm going to look for like the Plattsburgh, SUNY Plattsburgh page, the school page. And when I do that, eventually it'll load. And then you can actually see, if I click here where it says alumni, I can see alumni. And then I can narrow it down based on, obviously I might not want to talk to 32,000 people. That's a lot. But I can narrow it down by where people live, where the company that they work for. If I scroll next here, I can see like what kind of industry they work in or what they studied. These are probably the 2 I'd focus the most on. Or you can also put in a keyword too. So if I wanted to, I'll pick on teaching again. Like if I wanted to teacher as a job title, that narrowed it down to 3,000. And then if I wanted to talk to someone in the Syracuse area, it narrows it down to like 100. So I'm just kind of showing you how you can quickly narrow things down. And if you scroll further, then you'll start to see profiles. So you'll start to see, okay, teacher at Carthage School, 7th grade teacher. So then I could narrow down based on just scrolling through and being like, who kind of has a job title I'm kind of interested in. And then let's just pretend that I found someone. I'll click on the profile, and then I kind of scroll through and kind of see, okay, so it looks like they maybe got hired right out of school this one place, and they kind of have their LinkedIn info there. So if this was someone I was interested in reaching out to, what you could also do is where it says connect here, click connect, and then add a note. And that's where you give that context I was talking about before as to why you're reaching out. This is probably the most important part. So the message you want to give here in some way, shape, or form is, hi Sarah, I'm interested in the work that you do. I'm trying to, I'm looking forward to a career in education. I was wondering if I could talk to you for a few minutes about your career path. Really make it all about that person. Typically people might read that and get a little flattered, like, oh, it's not every day someone reaches out and wants to learn more about what I do. Make it something that's easy to say yes to, kind of going back to that. So that's kind of an example. Something to kind of look for, like one thing I'm noticing here is this person only has 10 connections. So what that might tell me is that they might not be super active on LinkedIn. So that might just be, you could certainly do outreach, but you may or may not hear anything back, just based on how much maybe they use LinkedIn. I'll try to look at someone else here to see if there's maybe a better example. So this person actually kind of has a little bit more detail in their profile, actually quite a bit more detail. They have, this is probably, I would say, a better profile. And I'm looking to see a bit more connections. So sometimes you'll see people in like thousands too. So it kind of depends. But those are some quick things about LinkedIn. As far as the more, if you click more, sometimes the connect won't show up, but if you click more, they hide it here for whatever reason. So if you're not seeing connect, click the more. Because if you click this message, it's going to say, oh, you got to try premium and pay. Don't do that. You don't need to pay for this service. Go through the more. Look for it there. So that's kind of like the alumni angle. The other angle I would recommend would be, so let's say you're interested in a particular company that you really want to work for. You can also search that company and then search for jobs within that company. So let's just say, for example, I was helping a student with this the other day. NBC Universal. There we go. NBC Universal. I want to make sure I get the right company. There it is. Okay. Sometimes you got to make sure you find the right thing for the company that you're wanting to look at. So most larger companies, or even some smaller ones, are going to have a LinkedIn profile page. So you could certainly get on that. I would recommend getting on that page, and they organize it similar to the kind of the alumni page that we looked at. You could look at jobs, so you could kind of see, okay, what jobs they have posted for now. LinkedIn also kind of works as a job search tool. Last week we kind of talked about it as a job search tool as well. But I'm going to kind of, for today, I'm going to stay more focused on the networking side. So if you also click people, it's going to do the same thing it did for like the Plattsburgh alumni page. It's going to show you all the people who work at NBC Universal that have a LinkedIn profile that say they work at NBC Universal. And what you could do in this aspect is kind of look at it and be like, okay, well, maybe I know I want to work in New York City, so let's filter it down to New York City. And then I click that next. And I know I want to be in, let's say, where is it? operations, and then I want to put in a keyword of a producer. So again, I narrowed it down from like 30,000 to 200 just by doing a few things. And then if you scroll down, again, kind of the same thing. You're going to start to see people's profiles, their positions. I click on it. It's going to show me, again, kind of what they're about. Might show me about what their experience has been. And this is also informative, because what you might find here is even before talking to someone, you can kind of scroll through and be like, okay, what was maybe their first job out of college? Trying to find that. It might have been one of these, or maybe they started in freelance producing, and then they kind of built up. So you can kind of see like how they got to the point that they're at now, and that's always pretty interesting. So even before you talk to them, you can kind of learn a bit about that. And then kind of same idea. So here's an example where the message thing is here and you can't see connect, but if I click more, then connect is here. Same idea. Add a note, give the context as to why you're wanting to reach out, and send your invitation. Now, something else you're going to want to be mindful of is once you start doing this, now LinkedIn does have an app for your phone. If you're going to start using it, I would encourage you to do that, because then you'll get a notification if someone reaches out to you, because you want to be relatively quick in your turnaround on that. So it's something you want to be kind of monitoring. Any questions that folks have about LinkedIn? I gave you a real quick kind of crash course on how to use it. But then what you'd want to do is kind of take, if someone says yes to you, then take that and be like, okay, could we chat over, maybe FaceTime or whatever kind of preferred video chat, or if they're willing to do a phone call. But I would say you want to try to get it out of the chat on LinkedIn and try to get it more either voice call, or maybe even more ideal a video call, to try to engage with them. So that would be the next recommendation I would have. So any questions about LinkedIn? I didn't see any yet. So that's really kind of the essence of LinkedIn there. The kind of the last thing I think I'm going to leave you with is, this is a little bit more for when you get to the point where, maybe meeting in person is okay again. But it doesn't have to be through Meetup. I just kind of use this as an example. But again, trying to find like organizations or young professional groups in your area to meet with people as well, because they can be great resources. But Meetup is also a great tool. You can search for groups, you can look for events in your area, and some of them are not necessarily by like profession. It might be just more like of interest, like an interest that you have, or a social interest that you have. So you can kind of see like, I'm just seeing what's in my area here. But if you kind of search in your home area, usually there's like details about, let's see, details about what the group is about, how often they do events, which right now is probably not super active. Although it looks like they are doing something. Book club, yoga. Okay, interesting. So they are still doing some things. So again, it's just a great way to kind of meet people in your area. So that Meetup I have found to be a useful tool, particularly if you end up moving somewhere new and you're wanting to find new people. This could be a good platform to try to find new people. With that, I think that's most of what I wanted to cover this evening. I am available. I'll kind of hang back if you have any questions you want to chat in, or if you want to stay on and talk through video, we can do that as well. I hope this was helpful for you. I think of this as kind of like, I was speaking in generalities today, so I know for some of you, there may be unique circumstances or more in-depth help that you'd like to have. I think just know that we are available for you. I'm going to show you really quick how you can make an appointment. Like if you wanted to follow up with us, I'll show you really quick how you can do that. So if you go back, I'm back on our Career Development Center page. or I was. If I go under Platts Life, Career Development Center, right here you can make an appointment with us. So this is our page where we have our three counselors. We're all available during the summer. You could schedule an appointment, click that link, and it shows you availability. Click on one of these times and you can claim the time. You can also, if I go back, if you wanted to see other events that are coming up, if I go under here, you kind of see the next event we have actually is our career fair on Wednesday. Virtual career fair, it's SUNY wide. If you're in job search mode, would definitely encourage you to do it. It's from 10 to 4. This link right here will take you right to the registration page. And then next week we have, as I mentioned, interviewing, and then the first kind of run of the job search boot camp ends on the 29th with salary, benefits, and negotiation. So would encourage you to think about those events, attend if you're interested, and thank you again for hanging out with me this evening. And I hope you have a good rest of your week.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Yeah, glad to help.